Recently, the United States Supreme Court has come down with some major decisions impacting freedom, liberty, First Amendment rights. Well, one of those cases is the Janus case. And we're going to talk about that case today because it is, without a doubt, a major case in impacting religious freedom, free speech, freedom of association. So we're going to talk about that case today. In the first segment, we're going to interview one of our attorneys to give some of the hidden gold nuggets of this case that you may not have heard about in the press and in the newspapers. But in the first segment, we're privileged to interview an individual who's the head of the Christian Educators Association International. It's an organization on the front line dealing with public school teachers and their needs and many of the challenges, including dealing with union dues. So welcome, David Schmus. Thanks for being on the program.
Absolutely, Brad. So good to be here.
Yeah. Now, David, first off, your organization. Many people will say, hey, I've heard of the NEA,
right?
National Educators Association. What's this Christian Educators Association International? What do you guys do? And what do you do?
I like to describe Christian educators as having two wings. On one hand, we have a ministry wing where we really encourage teachers to get out there and live their faith out loud legally, impacting the schools. We teach them how to do that. We also have what's called a protection wing, which means that we come alongside teachers and say, hey, if you get in trouble, if you have a problem on your campus, we're going to be there for you. We have liability insurance. We have attorneys to represent you. We have unlimited legal consultation with our legal team. And so if you're out there making a difference in the public schools as a believer, we want to stand behind you and protect you.
Right. So you really provide a lot of services, helping a lot of Christian teachers. I would say a lot of teachers who are Christians don't know about you or may not understand the significance of being a part of your organization. But hopefully after this show, they will be inspired to contact you and get involved. Real quick, up front, what's your email address?
Sure. It's dschmus, DSCHMUS, @CEAI.org.
Okay. And what's your website address?
CEAI.org. Yeah.
Just CEAI.org.
Yeah, Christian Educators Association International.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this case that came out, the Janus decision, this is not a minor case.
No.
This is a major case, and it gives people some background about this case. In the United States, about 28 states are called right-to-work states.
Right.
That's where people do not have to join a union, period. However, there are 22 states in the country where they don't have, it's not right to work. And government workers have been compelled, about half of all union workers are government workers, including public school teachers, and they have been compelled to have to be a part of their union unless they opt out as a religious objector, which we at Pacific Justice have been helping them do through our program, ChooseCharity.org.
Yes.
That said, this decision, though, impacts those government workers in those 22 states.
Yeah, and not only is it 22 states sounds like a little bit of a smaller number compared to 50, but you realize these are the big population blue states. California, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio. And so you have over half of the teachers in the country that are finally, after 41 years, liberated from forced unionism. So we're thrilled with this decision.
Yeah, it is major. It's very dramatic because the average teacher pays what to their union in these states?
In California, it's over $1,000 a year.
Over $1,000 a year in the state of California. Okay, that's huge.
It is huge, yeah.
And of course, that money goes to buy books and help teachers. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it may in some cases, but we've documented that in the last election cycle, almost $3 million of teacher union dues money went to Planned Parenthood.
Whoa!
Yeah, and
I want people to hear that again because that's really significant to me. I was not aware that it was that high.
Yeah.
You said over $3 million.
Almost $3 million.
Almost $3 million.
Yeah, found its way from teachers' union dues to Planned Parenthood. Some of that directly, some of that indirectly. But nonetheless, it found its way there. And I don't think many teachers realize that their money is going to support this kind of thing.
Baby killing.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
that's what it is. And it's victimizing women in crises.
Absolutely.
It is it's outrageous.
And if you look at their overall political spending, it's about 99% on one side of the political spectrum. These spending units does not represent the values of these teachers.
Right.
57% of teachers in public schools are either Republican or independent. And yet the money that the unions spend on politics is completely on the other side.
Completely. You said 99% of it goes to the other side.
It depends on how you measure it, but yes, it's in that ballpark.
Yeah, even though the clear majority are not a part of that political party that the union pushes money to support.
Right.
So that is a real disconnect.
It is. Oh, absolutely.
And yet they've been able to get away with this
Yeah.
because they've been able to force people. If you're a public school teacher, then you have to pay this money, big money,
Yeah.
to the union,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not.
Right. And many teachers have been lied to because the unions have told them, oh, if you check this box off on your application, then none of your money goes to politics. Well, that's only a very narrow definition of political money that goes directly to a PAC or directly to a candidate. But 75% of their political spending is spent straight from union dues on things like paying employees who do nothing but politics, organizing political rallies, educating their people on how to vote. All that money is according to the law, quote, not political, even though clearly is political.
Right.
And in union dues, no matter what box you check on your application, union dues support that. And most Christian teachers have no idea.
Right. Well, they hopefully will now.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you're listening to this program on podcast or you're watching this on the internet, forward this on to a teacher. Let them see this. Let them hear what's being said because I know you and I know your background. I know your organization. Very highly reputable, very credible. And that's why I have you here in the studio to give this information. Now, we're looking at the impact as far as politically. I mean, this is a major decision because I think that, first off, a large number of teachers are going to be opting out. You have to opt in.
Yes.
Which I thought was really surprising.
Yes.
I thought the decision was going to be teachers have a right to opt out.
Yeah.
No, they said no. Teachers have to opt in with no coercion, no intimidation, no threats, which the union thugs are really good at trying to do.
Yep.
I wish more of them would go to church. I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Yep.
But yet this court really went out of the way to protect the dignity and respect of union workers by saying they have to opt in.
Yes.
So what do you think the impact's going to be? What percentage do you think are going to say, you know what, enough is enough?
Sure.
I'm not going to be bullied to be a part of this thug organization
We'll
called the
see.
unions.
We'll see what happens legally as this washes out. Maybe you can be some help to us in this, Brad, because states are passing very restrictive laws that are basically an attempt to flout the opinion. For example, California is passing laws that saying if you try to opt out of your paycheck, your payroll deduction, that request has to go right to the union, and they have 5 days to basically kind of bully you and kind of convince you otherwise before it could go to the district.
Right.
Other states are passing laws that you can't even be notified of your rights as a public employee when you sign up, that you don't have to join the union. And so it remains to be seen whether these things hold up. But we expect in the neighborhood of 20% of teachers and government workers across the board to leave their unions over the next few years. And if that happens, we predicting that could cost labor unions in this country about $1 billion annually, which is $1 billion less money to go to Planned Parenthood and leftist political causes and all kinds of things that fly in the face of so much we stand for as biblical Christians, right?
Right, yeah. It goes totally against a biblical Christian worldview. It's not just a political thing. I mean, you could be a Christian and be a Democrat, Republican, whatever, as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But when they're giving money,
right,
specifically for candidates and causes that clearly go against the holy word of God and the biblical worldview.
Yep.
I mean, we're either going to be followers of the Lord, followers of Jesus, or we're going to be followers of the world. We're not God doesn't want us to be lukewarm.
That's right.
So I'm encouraging you out there right now, if you're a public school teacher or you know of someone who's a public school teacher and they profess to be a follower of Christ, to be a Christian, or perhaps they just have deep convictions that you know about don't comport with what we've just talked about with the union supports. Let them know about their rights. Let them know about their opportunities not to have to be a part of the union. And I will say this, that if the unions in these states, these blue states like New York and California and Massachusetts, et cetera, and Pennsylvania, that if they try to put these kind of conditions on union members not to have their dues go to the union, and they don't instead look at what the court said and said, no, we have to require opt-in. I mean, the union workers should not have to do anything to have the deductions stopped from their paychecks. So if this is going on, contact the Pacific Justice Institute, contact the National Right to Work Organization, contact entities out there that are there to help you to make sure that people of faith are respected, as the Supreme Court made so clearly in their decision.
Yeah, teachers can go right now to myjanusrights.org. myjanusrights.org, which is a website sponsored by National Right to Work Foundation.
Excellent.
And they can generate a letter there to go to their union and to their school district that will opt them out.
Excellent.
So it's all easy. And then they go to CEAI.org, they join us, and they get their insurance and liability and job protection back in place, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
Now the problem is that many teachers are being in a sense, bullied to say, hey, if you leave the union, you're going to be disloyal and you're getting something for nothing. You're a free rider. But the problem with that is that, these teachers, the unions have been free riding on these teachers for 41 years,
right.
Taking money from them without getting anything in return. And it was the unions who set up these monopolistic contracts that if you get out, you have no ability to negotiate your own contract. I would have been more than willing as a teacher to negotiate my own contract.
Right.
But I was not allowed to by law.
Right. And especially if you're an excellent teacher.
Right.
You're a hardworking teacher. You're doing a great job as a teacher. Mm-hmm. I would want to be able to negotiate my contract instead of getting the same pay as someone else that's really not qualified, doing a good job, but they have tenure.
Absolutely.
So few teachers are ever fired from their jobs because of the way it's set up, and it doesn't reward based on merit. For those teachers out there that are doing a great job and working hard and have a real heart for kids, I really don't see the argument there. I think that they're entitled to be respected.
And for those teachers who love their local union, and there are many of those out there, and I totally understand that, they need to realize that only 20% of their union dues stays local.
Only 20%?
The vast majority of it goes to the state and national unions. And so what I'm encouraging teachers to do is say, hey, if you love your local, keep your union dues, keep your $1,000 a year, send a $200 check to your local and say, hey, thanks for collective bargaining for me, if that's what you want to do.
Excellent.
And then
idea.
use the rest of the money maybe to invest in your school. We have a teacher, for example, in Michigan, that when they went right to work, he said, okay, I'm going to take my $1,000 a year and I'm going to fund a scholarship for students from my school who exemplify Christian character. And he gets to stand up at the end of the school year every year and testify to Jesus, not as a teacher on staff, but as a representative of Christian Educators Association funding a $1,000 scholarship that he pays for, and gets to testify to Christ and pay back his, sow back into his school with those union dues. We think that's
Excellent.
a great example.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. Once again, your website is CEAI.org. And I encourage people to check that out. Also, if you're a public school teacher out there or you want to be involved in public education, have an impact, we at Pacific Justice Institute have a book you can download. It's called Reclaim Your School. Reclaim Your School. And you'll find it very helpful, very informative, very empowering for public school teachers to know your rights and to be able to use your rights for the glory of God. So once again, thank you for coming to and being on the program.
Thanks for having me,
And if
Brad.
you'd like those resources I just talked about, go to pji.org. That's pji.org.
So on June 7th, I went to pick up my daughter from kindergarten, and she ran up to me and said that her friend was no longer a boy, he was now a girl, and that he had a new girl name. Went home, asked my daughter about it. I looked up the book on YouTube. My daughter told me the name of the book. It was I Am Jazz. So we watched the book being read, and we found out that she had been taught what transgenderism is. He had come to school dressed as a boy. The teacher had read the book, and afterwards he went into the bathroom, which was in the classroom. He went into the bathroom, changed into a dress, and came out. He was then announced as his new girl name, and the class was told that he was now a girl. For my daughter, having that book read and then seeing her little friend that she had known since preschool go into a bathroom, change clothes, and come out, in her 5-year-old brain, she thought, oh my goodness, all I have to do to change into a boy is to change my clothes. My daughter was taking a bath, and she got up out of the water and her hair was slicked back, and she saw a reflection of herself. And she started crying and shaking, and she was like, Mommy, I turned into a boy. I don't want to be a boy. And she was scared. She was really concerned about what she was wearing or how she looked. There were other kids in the class that were afraid that their blood could turn into boy blood. Another little boy went home, and his mom had to have the entire sex talk with him about body parts. It was very confusing. And again, the parents had no idea what had been taught in class. So they were all exposed to this highly controversial sexual topic without having any without even thinking about their own sexuality yet. There were members of the LGBT community that were actually transgender that came up to us and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened. And I stand with you, and I'm for parental rights. And that wasn't right what happened, and I'm so sorry that got taught to them." And that to me was just so amazing, because the point of it was I was protecting my daughter and the other kids in that class, because they all have the right to be protected, all of them. And so it was actually really beautiful. I loved working with the Pacific Justice Institute because I felt like they had my same heart. It wasn't about fear or judgment or anything. It was like, hey, let's support you and help you through this, and let's fight for the rights for everybody. It was never about hate or anything, which made it super easy. I would totally recommend Pacific Justice Institute if you have something that happened at your school, if you have legal questions. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right and to protect your kids.
When we heard about this situation at Rockland Academy, we got involved right away. We gave counsel to the parents on what the law did or didn't say, and we drafted a model policy for the charter school to adopt. Now, unfortunately, the school refused to apologize to the parents for their lack of communication, and they also refused to give a strong assurance to the parents that they would receive prior notice or that they would have the opportunity to opt their children out of similar circumstances in the future. If you ever have trouble with your school, teaching your child something that you feel is not appropriate for your child, don't hesitate to give us a call or go to our website, pji.org. We're here to help. And folks, if you decide to support the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, we greatly appreciate that. We have wonderful resources on our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. And there on our website, once again, we have a book. It's called Reclaim Your School. It talks all about a teacher's right, a parent's rights, students' rights, school board members' rights, to be able to live their faith, share their faith, and impact their public school and be protected. And in particular, it describes very clearly what teachers can do and how they're protected. So please take advantage of this resource. Go to our website, pji.org, pji.org. Us in the studio, one of our star in-house attorneys who heads up our Southern California office, Michael Peffer. Michael, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, Michael, you have a lot of experience in litigation as an attorney, and we greatly admire you and having you as a part of our team at Pacific Justice Institute. One area, though, I know you've been watching very closely is the area of the rights of teachers when it comes to their faith and in the workplace. And specifically, this Janus decision. Michael, tell me, how significant is this Janus decision when it comes to liberating not just teachers, but all government workers in those 22 states that require them in the past to join a union?
Right. Thanks, Brad. And, that's one of the exciting things about this. It isn't just teachers. Any public sector union, and we know by that means government workers who are unionized, they can opt out. I mean, they can stop having their dues being extracted, the court said, without their consent. And so this is a huge issue. We deal with the First Amendment all the time. That's our business. And the First Amendment was intended, again, to limit the government, and it includes 3 rights: speech, religion, and association.
Right.
All three of those are implicated by this Janus decision.
Yeah, that's how powerful it is.
It
It's not
is.
just one fundamental right. We got three, which is a part of the First Amendment, being cited here and relied upon by the Supreme Court. So it's a very, very powerful decision in that regard. But now, you said opt out. Obviously, we're encouraging those who are government workers, teachers, whatever, to put their union on notice, send them a letter saying, please cease and desist, deduction of my union dues, sign their name, make a copy of it, date it, give it to their union. But the language in this case is even more protective than that, in that, as I understand it, Michael, it actually requires workers to have to consent, to have to opt in order for money to be taken. And I'd say most government workers have never opted in and consented for that money to be deducted from their paycheck. It was just done automatically.
Yes, right. In fact, I think that's the whole basis for the Janus decision, is that the person didn't consent, in fact, wanted to be not giving his money, his paycheck, parts of his paycheck every month to a union that he didn't believe in their causes. And so let's make it really clear. The case says in no uncertain terms that any attempt by a union to remove, extract, the court uses that word, I love that, to extract people's money from them based without consent is a violation of the First Amendment.
Right. I call it stealing, but that's another.
Yeah, stealing.
I think the Supreme Court just sort of looked at it sort of the same way, like, hey, they're taken from you without you consenting.
That's right.
That's wrong. I mean, I learned that in Sunday school when I was a kid, you know. So the Supreme Court, I think they really got this right. It was a narrow decision, 5-4. I think with the Supreme Court moving in the right direction, I think Kennedy's replacement, I have no doubt, will be in agreement with that decision. It'll be someone who respects the Constitution,
Yes.
and the importance and significance of our fundamental rights in the Constitution, including the First Amendment. So this is a very broad decision. It protects the right of union workers to not just have to be able to opt out, but it also protects them from having money taken without their consent.
That's right.
Now, let me give you a hypothetical, Michael. Let's say there's someone watching this program or listening to this show, and they say to themselves, well, my union says that I have to fill out forms. I've got to jump through hoops to have the union dues, no longer taken from my paycheck. I've got to do this, got to do that. It has to be a certain day of the year, a certain week of the year. We understand the unions are trying to try all these tactics. What do you tell that union worker who is out there and they feel frustrated because here the Supreme Court says you're free, but then the union says, oh, no, we have our ways. We have our ways to keep you under bondage and having to pay dues that violate what you believe in and be a part of this organization you don't want to be a part of. Right. What would you tell them, Michael?
Well, first of all, I harbor no illusions that the unions are going to say, okay, I'm done. Well, sorry we took all your dues all those years.
Yeah.
No, neither they nor the states that support them, like California and other states, are going to give up freely.
Because the stakes are so high.
That's right.
And then, but these politicians are a lot of them are banking on lots of this money coming to them in their campaigns. So there's going to be a fight.
Yeah, in fact, some have called this sort of a laundering money scheme where the government gives these workers money through the union collective bargaining, and by that, the union turns around and gives that money back to them and says, "Here you are. Here's the money, and so for your campaign." So it's very insidious, and they're not going to give up freely. So what we say is, even though it may not be a requirement to tell your union affirmatively that you do not give consent, we think that's a wise thing to do right from the start, is to say, I withdraw any consent. You do not have my consent in no uncertain terms. And we've actually prepared some verbiage for this.
Oh, we have? Okay.
We have, yes. And I have actually been asked already with folks that are interested in this. And so we're happy to send that out. It hasn't yet been put onto our site, but we can get that. Contact any of our offices, and we can have that.
That's right. And I'm sure we will have it on our website in the near future.
Absolutely.
pji.org, pji.org. And if you go to the website and it's not on the website, folks, just contact our office and we'll help you with that letter. So point number one is, even though they're not required technically to have to opt out, but to opt in, go ahead, put the union on notice if that's their convictions, and say, I hereby do no longer consent for you to deduct union dues from my paycheck. I'm opting out. Sign their name, date it, and they keep a copy of it and give it to their union. What happens if the union says, "Oh no, you have to abide by these regulations, and you have to have an affidavit. You have to." I mean, there's all kinds of things they can make up. What happens if they don't respect that letter, Michael?
Well, first of all, our first solution was for the first issue is, send out the opt-out. If you don't have it, PGA will get that to you at no charge.
Right. So we can help them with that easily.
Exactly. The other is contact PGI. We're very interested in these cases. Look, we don't really know how this is going to all flesh out in the end. All we do know, and this is a very great fact to have certain, is that the language is clear. And I'm very interested, and I know you are too, in a case that is a First Amendment case. This now has become ability to bring a First Amendment case because the court says this violates the First Amendment if they take it without consent.
Yeah.
So
It's
it
huge.
is clear, and we would love to see the courts bring more definition to this because that's what's going to be necessary. That's the way our system works.
Yeah. But the court was, it wasn't like they were real vague in the Janus decision. They made it really clear.
Yeah.
There has to be consent for them to take this money out of the paycheck of hardworking union members or workers who don't want to be a part of a union. Yes. And they get all the money back, and it goes into the pocket of the person who earned that money.
That's right.
I mean, it's tremendous. And we in the early first part of the show, we talked about the impact politically and economically. We're looking at, in California, for example, public school teachers, over $1,000 a year. They're being forced, against their will, without consent, to go to a union that supports issues, causes, and candidates like Planned Parenthood that goes totally against their beliefs. But we're also talking about local workers, not only school district workers. We're looking at state workers, federal government workers, agency workers. I mean, this is tremendous in terms of how many are being set free from having to be a part and support an organization and associate with an organization that they don't believe in, that they don't agree with. This is a major, major game changer.
Yeah, and one thing that's important, an important distinction to make, is that the Janus case has to do with people who are not members. So in order to do this, you're not going to be able to be a member of the union. You can't say, well, I'm going to stay a union member and not pay their
Good
dues.
point.
So I think it's an important thing to note. It's definitely not insurmountable because most people that have conscious issues, they don't want to be a part of that union.
Right.
But the case is clear. It says even though the collective bargaining agreement does something of beneficiary in a beneficiary way to the beneficial way to the employee, but it also forecloses all negotiation on the part of the employee. So the employee is stuck.
Right.
So the employee doesn't have to be a member to get the benefits of the collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
There are benefits that you don't get, and that may be something worth researching.
Right.
But make no question about it, you can get free from this supporting causes that are diametrically opposed to your faith.
Right. Now, we just have a little bit of time left, Michael. What about those workers who don't work for the government? Say they work in the private sector, maybe manufacturing, a coal mine somewhere, and they're still required to have to pay union dues. Is there any relief for them, for those workers in the private sector who live in those 22 states that require union membership?
Yes, and that's really important to know that we're talking about Janus concerns government workers.
Right. So now I'm talking about private sector workers. Is there anything that they can do, Michael, to be protected as well? What can they do?
We believe that the protections of conscience are still there for them. They can opt out based on a sincerely held religious belief, and we think that is still something that's viable here and necessary for the people that don't belong to a public sector.
Right.
unions.
There's clear case law on this.
That's right.
I mean, it's been around. Case law has gone for several decades now. Protecting the rights. And if you're out there listening to this and you're not working for the government, you're in a private sector in one of these 22 states like California, New York, et cetera, you are protected to have all your union dues go to a charity instead of the union, a charity instead of the union. To find out information about how you can do this without charge, go to choosecharity.org, 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 and there you can get all the information on how you can do that and do it fairly easily. And we at Pacific Justice Institute will stand by you and represent you if necessary without charge. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your work, and thank you. So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.